What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sector for Nerds, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars Retro Discussions. Today I'm going to be chatting with you guys about Season 4, Episode 13, Escape from Kadavo. This is part 3 of the Zygerrian arc in The Clone Wars, the final episode of that arc. If you guys have been missing the last couple of episodes, I had my friend DJ on to chat with me about the first 2 episodes. Absolutely amazing discussions. You guys, highly recommend you go and check those out. And if you haven't been watching this series, just like in general, like what the heck you doing? Go and check it out from the start. So many incredible episodes of this show. Clone Wars is such a great show, you guys. So, which is also why I'm so happy to continue to do this every single week. So let's get into it, you guys. This episode was directed by Danny Keller and written by Henry Gilroy and Stephen Melching. The cookie for this episode: great hope can come from small sacrifices. So, you know what, intro guy, I'm going to make sure to not forget today, give you your time, take it away, let the people know what's going down in this episode. A people enslaved. To locate the abducted colonists of a peace-loving world, the Jedi infiltrated the slaver planet of Zygerria, only to be captured by its ambitious queen, who plots to rebuild her empire of oppression. Now, even Obi-Wan Kenobi must come to terms with a life in chains. Yeah, this is a crazy episode, especially the start where we get to see like Obi-Wan and Rex as slaves. DJ and I kind of touched on it at a little bit of the end of last week's episode, but we see slaves getting tortured because Obi-Wan steps out of line. And remember what the guy said, anytime that you step out of line, it's not going to be you that just suffers, it's going to be the people around you. And I think it's so interesting to me, the fact that I don't know, when you watch through the prequel trilogy, right? Obviously Qui-Gon was there when he saw Anakin as a slave on Tatooine and things like that. Obi-Wan wasn't necessarily there for that. And if you remember what Obi-Wan says when they pick up Anakin, right? Why do I sense we've picked up another pathetic life form? At the time, he doesn't think of Anakin any differently than Jar Jar. So this is really an episode where we get to see, I guess almost Obi-Wan take a step into Anakin's old life and to sort of understand what it was that he had to go through as a boy, no less. I saw in the behind the scenes for this episode, they talk about how the ending of this episode in the comics is Obi-Wan acknowledging to Anakin about this whole situation. And apparently that ending was shot too, which I would have liked to have seen, Dave, which I can also understand the fact okay, they gave Anakin everything that they needed to in the end, with this arc, but they also wanted to make sure that they were making it about Ahsoka too, and about her people and her understanding their struggles and her being the big hero. I get it. And I guess ultimately too, it also comes down to 21, 22 minute times, you know what I'm saying? So this is the first time that we get to see the Solar Sailor in its sail form, which is, I think, the only time that we get that in this show, to be honest. I'm trying to remember if there's any other times. Maybe towards the end of Clone Wars we might get something, but not often do we see it in that state. We see Dooku talking with Sidious. Sidious is saying how long have Sith empires been carried on the backs of slaves, and if the queen does not see the error of her ways, end her rule. I love how when Anakin's chatting with the queen, he's like, oh, so you have a master. She doesn't see it that way yet, but trust me, she's going to see it in a little bit. So Dooku has a chat with the queen, and the queen's talking about how Dooku was uninvited, but you see Dooku was invited, but not by the queen. He was invited by the prime minister. She proposes this plan to Dooku about how, right now Obi-Wan Kenobi's in chains, and Dooku's just I'm listening. I love how he's just oh, Obi-Wan, okay, I'm curious, what do you got for me? What's he doing? She goes through this whole plan and talks about, the stuff that we were talking about earlier, about how Obi-Wan isn't going to be able to help himself. He can't help others. His spirit's going to break. And she's imagine an army of Jedi in your service count. And Dooku's that is tempting. Only the problem is my goal isn't necessarily the enslavement of the Jedi Order, but its extermination. And so he wants the queen to summon Skywalker. And the prime minister is on Dooku's side with this, where he says, the count is right. You're no longer fit to rule. And she gets ticked and she pulls out her whip and she's going to, assumingly attack them. And Dooku just, force chokes her and he says, punishment for a slave who disobeys her master. Anakin was right. Which, speaking of Anakin, earlier on before the conversation, we see him rescuing Ahsoka. He sends Ahsoka to go get the ship. She senses a disturbance in the Force. I think it's also interesting, too, now that we're kind of on this subject as well, I don't think Ahsoka and Dooku ever end up interacting in the Clone Wars at all, which is really interesting because they're always like within vicinity of each other, right? Like even on Tatooine in the movie, right? Like they sense Dooku there as well, but they never actually have any interactions, which probably for the better because I don't think Ahsoka would have stood much of a chance if she was going up against him. So yeah, probably for the better. But then Anakin goes to confront Dooku, and Dooku says, "I see the Queen is giving you a long leash. Take one more step, and I will end her life." And Anakin's like, "Bro, what makes you think I care about this slaver scum?" Dooku's like, "Indeed." The music swelling here as well was really good, where it's just like, oh, shit. I was like, oh, let's go. Okay.
I see the Queen has given you a long leash. One more step, and I will end her life.
Why would you think I care about this slaver scum?
Indeed.
And Dooku pulls out his saber, and I'm just sitting there like, okay, well, Anakin, like, the Queen has your saber, like, maybe just, like, do a little force digging and you'll eventually find it. But he's just like, no, just act on instinct, like, I'm just gonna grab this whip instead. And Dooku just gives him this look like, bro, really? That's what you're gonna use to fight me right now? I'm one of the best duelists in the damn galaxy. This is what you're gonna use to fight me? And Dooku very quickly takes care of business. But then all of a sudden, 3 Zygerrian guards walk in the room and they see the Queen down, and Dooku's like, she was murdered by the Jedi.
Lies! Deceptions!
So Anakin presses a button on his comm, which, you know, gives Ahsoka the signal to bring the ship into position, and then he grabs the Queen, gets the Queen out of there and onto the ship. And the whole reason he went back for the Queen, if I didn't mention before as well, is because the Queen knows where Obi-Wan is, so he kind of needed that information before they left. And in the moments before the Queen dies, like, she tells Anakin where Obi-Wan is, and she says, you know, you were right, Skywalker, I am a slave, just as you are. Which kind of goes back to the whole discussion that me and DJ had last week about the Jedi and them being slaves of the Republic, like that whole discussion that we had. If you guys missed it, go back and check it out. So then we get like the second half of this episode where they go, Anakin and Ahsoka go to Kadavo to rescue Obi-Wan. And Dooku, of course, shows up via hologram and says that, you know, Kenobi's going to die. But then when they find out that Anakin's coming, he says, Kenobi, tell Anakin if he doesn't surrender that slaves are going to be killed in his name. And Obi-Wan tells him, like, Anakin, this isn't a battle you're going to win alone. And Anakin says, who said I was alone? All right, well, here we go. Let's see. Which Jedi are we going to bring with us to save the day this time? You know, it's been a minute since we've seen, like, Ayla Secura, or maybe Luminara Unduli, or nope, it's Plo Koon in the Wolfpack. Of course it is. Henry Gilroy specifically said in the behind the scenes of this episode that you put Plo Koon in here because of you-know-who. Look, hey, listen to me, all right? Everyone has a bias, all right? So I'm not criticizing that. And there are much worse things that could be done. All right, listen, I don't mind the Wolfpack, all right? Wolfpack is back, causing mass destruction. Y'all know. Just kidding. Probably none of you know. Don't turn your back on the Wolfpack. I like Plo Koon. I like Commander Wolffe. I like the Wolfpack. I do appreciate that Dave gave them more to do in this show because, you know, it's not like they did much outside of this show. So it's cool that we gave them more of a spotlight here. I also would just have liked it if we also gave other Jedi and spotlight and their clone battalion spotlight as well. Like, man, I really wish we would have gotten more Ayla Secura besides just like that one arc in season 1. So they got to take down the turrets before they can bring the ships into position, but unfortunately the towers are ray shielded, so then Anakin has to go hijack one and start taking out the turrets. Ahsoka says that she's going to go help her people. Obi-Wan and Rex break free and they start taking on the Zygerrians. Keeper Agras, that's the guy that's been, you know, the leader of this whole Kadavo operation. Like, he destroys the computer so they can't switch the controls or anything to help out the people. But Ahsoka has a plan to, like, move the cruiser underneath the facility, and then they can, you know, have everybody go from there. They bring down a bunch of, you know, cables and stuff to have the people slide down. A couple of them end up slipping and sliding, but Ahsoka's there to catch them. Members of the Wolfpack are there to save them. Dude, I'll say this, man. Commander Wolffe genuinely does have one of the coolest looking helmets in the whole show. Like, man, when they brought him back for Bad Batch, and I just saw, like, the profile of like what, like once he started turning around and I saw the helmet, I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, let's freaking go. He's here. And I immediately pointed it out in the Bad Batch trailer too, for those who watched that.
All of you.
That was Wolffe. I saw Wolffe. Agris is like, what? Come on, Master Kenobi. I know a Jedi wouldn't kill an unarmed man. And Obi-Wan just looks at Rex, and then Rex throws one of the staffs right into his heart, and he's like, I'm no Jedi. I do kind of find it funny how he was so willing to kill someone here, but then yet he was so hesitant, like the previous arc before this when it came to Krell. Like, that was a very quick turnaround by Rex. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to kill this person. No, I can't do it. I can't do it. And then this episode, he's like, nope, just, you're dead. Like, damn, okay. Wow. So then they get, everybody gets off the station. Plo sends the gunships in to do their work, and the facility gets destroyed. And then the end of the episode, everyone's like complimenting Ahsoka on her plan. And again, that was the whole purpose behind the end of this episode, right? Is they wanted to have like Ahsoka be the hero of the situation. And Governor Rashti talks about how the people of Kuros will end up joining the Republic, and yeah, pretty much all there is to that. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like the Zygerrian arc is a nice arc in the Clone Wars for sure. I don't know if I would necessarily say it's one of my favorites, but it's not terrible either. Obviously, you guys saw the last 2 episodes. You guys know, like DJ, my friend DJ, really big fan of these episodes. So for what it's worth, like it's a fine arc, but I will say I am ready to move on to other things. And you guys, what we are about to move on to in the Clone Wars, we've got a lot of great stuff coming up. And it all starts next week, in my opinion, with a fantastic standalone episode of the Clone Wars. Really, I believe like the last true standalone episode of the Clone Wars, because the rest of the episodes in this series from like season 4 all the way to season 7, it's all a part of these arcs that happen, these 3-4 episode arcs. So next week, we got to talk about the episode A Friend in Need, where we see the return of a little group known as Death Watch. It's about damn time. That's going to wrap us up for this week, you guys. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this Kadavo arc and what you guys think about, these episodes. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Let me know all your thoughts. And be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others to help support the channel. And I will see you guys next time.
The Death Watch are murderers, sworn to destroy Jedi. You don't know what you're doing.
Am I interrupting something?
No, of course not. We were just,
It's time to talk business. Tell your woman to leave us.